Hi, everybody. Welcome back into MedStar Capitals Iceplex. I'm Katie Florio, joined alongside Tarek El-Bashir, as always, for another prospect edition of Rink Report. But this time, we're going to dig even deeper. Still have a lot of guys in Hershey to talk about, but the WHL, some guys there that have been lighting up the score sheet. Yeah. Really, really exciting things for the Capitals to come. But Tarek, as always, we got to talk about this current team because the Capitals back in the win column Monday night, a 2-1 win over the Los Angeles Kings. And we thought it would probably be a low-scoring game. Both teams really sound defensively. That's exactly what we saw from the Capitals. Alex Ovechkin starting to heat up. A good performance by Charlie Lindgren as well. But overall, what were your takeaways?
Katie, there was a lot to like about that game. And just in general, I feel like there's a lot to like about the way the Caps have been playing this last little bit. We all know that they stumbled a little bit there and at fallen behind in the standings a little bit. But they're 2-1-1 going into the Edmonton game, starting to collect some points. But more importantly, you're starting to see some positive signs for some very important players. You just mentioned Alex Ovechkin going into the Oilers game, goals in 3 of 4, goals in back-to-back. He's starting to warm up. We have seen over 21 seasons here in Washington, Alex is a very streaky player. When he's feeling it, he can score in bunches. And you mentioned Charlie Lindgren as well. He wasn't really playing up to his own standards there for a little bit. He was getting some really tough breaks. He was getting the back half of some back-to-backs, which is always difficult when you get into the hotel at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or you get home early in the morning. He played great. You could tell the guys really wanted to play for him in that Kings game. They were laying out and blocking shots late to make sure he got that win. That's another good sign because later in this week, there's another back-to-back. So Charlie's going to be in net again, and the Capitals are at a very important part of their season. Going into Thanksgiving, they've got to make up some ground here, and they've got some games. We talked about this in the last episode. 75% of the teams during the salary cap era that are in the playoffs come Thanksgiving go on to make the playoffs. If you're out, it's kind of hard to get in. So this is a really critical stretch, and if you're a Caps fan, you should be very heartened by the fact that the important guys, many of them, Connor McMichael, another guy who's starting to heat up, are starting to feel it because they're going to need these guys to get back in it.
You mentioned Connor McMichael right there, and that's another thing I want to talk about is some of the line changes we're starting to see. Carberry has done a lot of mix and matching this year. We tried Connor McMichael at center for a while, especially with the loss of Pierre-Luc Dubois. Really seeing the chemistry, not just back at the wing, but with Alex Ovechkin. Nick Dowd earlier this week moved up to the third line. What were you seeing from maybe some of those switches that can just simply add a spark for this team?
In that Kings game, a couple of things stood out to me. Justin Sourdif is starting to look more comfortable playing center. He certainly looks pretty good playing higher in the lineup. I want to see some more of that. I really liked Hendrix Lapierre and Ethan Frank. Those are two players who had some really great chemistry, a level down with the Hershey Bears in the AHL, and they both kind of think the game the same way. They play really fast. They put a lot of pressure on the Kings D with that speed. And so there are some things within those changes that Spencer Carberry make that I really like. But, you want to see these guys develop some chemistry and you want to see some continuity. So it's important to kind of experiment at this point of the season, kind of mix things around, but it's also important for guys. We know Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be out for a while now. Let some guys start to develop and settle into their roles and where they are, and hopefully that continuity will lead to some points in the standings.
Well, a very important stretch for the Capitals as we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, but as always, Tarek, we got to highlight what's going on. I say down on the farm. You could even go beyond that. Hershey has such a pool of talented players that we'll get to later in this show. But first time talking this season on Rink Report about the WHL. The past 2 years, the Capitals' first rounders have come from that league. A wonderful, wonderful league with so many talents, so many young players. We've seen it with Lynden, Lakovic, Tarek Parasak already as well. So
he says his name wrong. It should be Tarek.
I know. That's hard for me to think Tarek and Tarek. I just need two Tareks here to keep things straight.
Great kid.
We'll hear from Lynden coming up shortly. But all in all, taking a look down there, I guess I should say geographically up there. Lynden telling us it was already time to pull out his parka last week. But take us through this league and some of the guys there that we'll be hearing their names a lot more.
So the Capitals historically have really liked the WHL. Ross Mahoney, the architect of the Capitals drafts for decades now, he lives in Regina. So that's right in his wheelhouse. He can get to those games and see those guys a lot. But over the last 7 years, going back to the Stanley Cup year in 2018, I did a little math. I'm not really good at math,
I'm not good at math either.
but I did a little
That's
math.
why we talk.
43 draft picks, 15 have come from the W.
Wow.
That's 35%. So there certainly is something that this organization likes about players out of that league. And getting back to Lakovic, no one has more goals than him right now in the W. That's a very competitive, high-level league that produces a lot of NHL players. And guess who's second? Parasak. So you have those two guys at the top of the goal scoring charts. The Capitals got to feel really good about their future. But just in general, speaking about the prospect pipeline here, it's really difficult when you're a team like the Capitals and you're good every single year because you're drafting, with the exception of the 1 year where they were able to get Ryan Leonard at number 8, you're drafting in the late teens or mid-20s. It's hard to find players who are able to contribute in the sooner time frame rather than later. But the Capitals have done a really good job of mining those players. So if you're a Caps fan, you should be really happy that your prospect pipeline is now arguably top 10 in the league after being towards the bottom for a long time. So we've been so worried here in DC about what is the other side of the Alex Ovechkin era going to look like? Is there going to be a long, cold winter where they have to reload and struggle?
Oh, the future's bright.
No, they don't. I mean, you're talking about Lakovic. He's going to be here in a couple of years. Parasak, 2, maybe 3 years. He's got a little bit more developing to do. Cole Hudson, I mean, if he is any bit like his brother Lane, I mean, he's going to step in and be a star pretty much right away. Then you got Ilya Protas. I mean, he's leading the Hershey Bears in points right now.
Can we even call him Lil Pro anymore?
No, I mean he's like big grown pro, he's the other pro. I mean, maybe not little pro, the other pro. But I mean, just in terms of the future of this organization, they're in good hands. They're in very good hands.
Well, you and I had the chance to catch up with Lynden this summer and development camp, training camp, things like that. But we also had the pleasure of speaking to him virtually last week in the thick of his season with Moose Jaw. Here's what he had to say. Hello, everybody. Katie Florio and Tarek El-Bashir and I on Zoom for the first time. Kind of weird, but that is because we are thrilled to welcome in a very special guest today. Capitals first-round draft pick Lynden Lakovic of the WHL right now. Lynden, first off, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know it's busy up there for you with practices, games, things like that. So we really appreciate you jumping on Rink report today, but safe to say a lot of early success for you this season already, 25 points on the year. So just take us through what life has been like on and off the ice with Moose Jaw right now.
Yeah, thanks guys. I really appreciate coming on here and chatting with you guys. And yeah, it's been a great start for so far. It's getting pretty chilly here, like I mentioned, but the on and off the ice, it's been good here. Our team's starting to roll now, and it's looking like a promising year for the guys here.
Tell me, Lynden, how did your success in Capitals training camp maybe set you up for a really fast start to the year in the W?
Yeah, it definitely gave me a lot of confidence. I think I'm a confident player, and I thought I had a pretty good camp there in Washington. And coming back here, leaving conversations with Spencer and Patrick and a lot of the staff there. It gave me a lot of confidence coming back, and I thought I've started the year off pretty hot, and I've left where I left off in Washington.
You and I were just chatting a few minutes about how it was a veteran group down here. And so you felt like it was a smooth transition into camp and things like that. But were there any specific older guys that you quickly and very naturally sort of formed a connection with or a relationship with that as development camp into then training camp went on, you leaned on more so than anyone else?
Yeah, I think, the first two people that come to my mind are Tom and Pierre. I think those were two guys that would chat with me and a couple of the younger guys on a daily basis, and give me advice. And Brandon Duhaime was another one. We actually played at the same academy growing up, obviously different time frames, but that was something we chatted about. And, so those guys were veteran guys, but those are the guys I built connections with, I thought.
What are some of the areas of your game the Capitals asked you to kind of focus on this season to get you ready, potentially for playing with the big club next year?
Yeah, I think compete was area that was addressed, and they wanted to see that, and I think I've shown that since coming back, and I showed that in camp. So just being consistent with it, and I did it at camp, and I've started to do it here. I just got to be consistent with it throughout the year, and going into camp next year, I got to do that if I want a spot on the team.
So when it comes to compete, you're just talking about second effort, winning corner battles,
Mhm.
being a little heavier on your stick, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd say being heavier on the stick and, winning majority of your puck battles. I'm one of the older players in the league now. I'm definitely one of the biggest, and I should be winning majority of my puck battles. And so I think I have so far.
Good.
So just staying consistent with it. I think that's what they wanted to see.
We've talked to guys like Ilya Protas, Andrew Crystal this year, and their first year pro, obviously standout players as well, but they've admitted, rightfully so, it was a big jump from juniors into professional hockey. How much, when you are preparing and doing things down there, is that kind of in the back of your mind? Yes, you're trying to do everything you can to have success at your level, but also focus beyond that and maybe what needs to change as you do start your professional career.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I know that that is a big jump. And um, you're playing here and you're playing to win the game, but you're also doing the right things to set yourself up for success going into next year. And if that's uh, not necessarily system wise, but if that's your daily habits and what you're doing to make yourself better, I think that's all going to add up and set myself up for success going into pro hockey next year.
So right now, Lynden, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the top two goal scorers in the W are both first round draft picks of the Capitals. Tarek Parasak is right behind you.
Yeah.
Is it cool to have a little bit of a rivalry there? And I think you play him head to head later in the season, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We don't see Prince George very often, but I think when we do play each other, it's going to be a good one. And it is good to have, some friendly competition there, especially with another Caps prospect. And I roomed with him when I was down there, so
Did you? Okay.
it's going to be fun. And I know he's got me on assist right now, but if I get a few more of those and keep on stat padding the goals, it'll be a fun conversation next time I see him.
Do you guys talk now in season? And I know you're again both busy, but even going back to being roommates and quickly forming that relationship, how much are you keeping that dialogue open throughout the year?
Yeah, for sure. Quite a bit. After some games, I'll check the box score, and for example, like the other night, I think he had a 4 point night, so I had texted him and I just said like, "Wow, like, have a night, kid," or something like that. But and he does the same, so we got a pretty good connection there.
How much do you keep up with Capital staff during the season? Do you hear from Coach Carberry or Jim Slater or any of the development guys?
Yeah, I hear from the general and Jim Slater, and yeah, it's all been good. Mainly, they're player development guys, but um, they were down here. They come down here probably once a month, I'd say, and their trainers are texting me, just checking in on me, and I'm on a workout plan they have me on, so just keeping in tabs with that and making sure my body's right. Like they're doing an awesome job at making sure I'm developing and my mindset is headed in the right direction.
How cold is it in Moose Jaw right now? It's about 60 degrees here, Fahrenheit in DC. I might go fishing after this.
It's probably -6 right now.
Oh my God.
Celsius.
Yeah,
Still cold.
Oh, oh, oh,
it's like a
Celsius. Okay.
warmer day. It's like a warmer day
I
here.
already had my parka on down here in Northern Virginia 2 days ago,
Oh.
so I can't.
Soft. Soft.
I'm soft. I know. I know. Well, awesome. Well, Lyndon, thank you so much. This has been wonderful to get to chat with you. Like we said, know you're lighting it up, so we wish you the best of luck the rest of the way, and look forward to talking to you in person when you're down in Washington again.
Yep. Thank you, Kate.
Be
Thank you,
watching.
Tarek. I really
Yep.
appreciate it.
All right, Lynden, we'll see you soon, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Well, a pleasure talking to Lynden. Such a mature kid, funny. You can tell, really intelligent, but he kind of got me there, too. We've mentioned I'm not that good at math. I'll tell you that right now. My parents could attest, and already was confused with the Celsius Fahrenheit there as well.
I've never figured out the metric system or Celsius. I remember when I was a little kid, I'm a little older than you are, or a lot older than you are. I was always told, you got to learn the metric system. We're all going to be going to the – guess what? We're not. We're still doing feet and Fahrenheit. Yep. But anyway, I can't imagine how cold it's got to be in Saskatchewan right now. I mean, whatever -6 Celsius, that sounds really cold.
It's getting. I'm already wearing a parka here in DC, and he is all the way up there in Moose Jaw, so I can't complain.
It'll be snowing soon up there.
Absolutely, if not already. But once again, just back to the hockey side, his skills. Got to think a guy like him too. His size, the frame that he has.
He keeps getting bigger.
And he keeps getting bigger. Just the way it helps his reach with the puck, being able to protect the puck. I know that's some things that the scouts here, Washington, their development team has liked about him. But similar to the Protas brothers, things like that, we're getting some bigger guys in that you got to think are going to be a huge asset to this team.
I feel like at some point in the very near future, led by Tom Wilson and Alexei Protas, this is going to be arguably the biggest team in the league. They're going to have some really huge lines. Cole Hudson is going to be the smaller guy on the back end, maybe Rasmus Sandin. But, I mean, in general, this team is going to average 6'2", 200 plus. And look, skill is so important, but if you can have size and skill, those are the teams that win, especially when it comes to the playoffs where the intensity goes up 20% and the physicality goes up 20%. And, that's something that Lynden mentioned there. They've asked him to ramp up his compete level a little bit. Be a little harder on pucks in the corner. Be a little heavier on your stick. When you go into a corner battle, come out with the puck every single time. And so that's something he's going to be working on. And as he fills out and gets stronger, because there's one thing, being tall, but also when you start getting your man muscles.
Yes,
and he's 18, going to be 19 next month.
So
that's
young.
That's going to start happening for him in the next couple of years.
And I love how you mentioned his relationship with Parasak, because we see them here in Capitals jerseys together on the ice.
They were roommates.
Roommates. And so for them to be now same league, different teams, but both absolutely lighting it up, it leaves that friendly competition. I know he mentioned he texts him after he sees that Tarek has a big game and vice versa. And so you got to think that this Caps development team is really happy with the ongoing communication that these guys have. And it's not just, all right, meet at Dev Camp and then we'll see you again. They are talking this entire season.
It's funny, Katie, if you go back to the early stages of the Ovi era, one thing that helped this team come together and coalesce so quickly was they grew up together. Ovi kind of started in the league a little before, the Carlsons and Backstrom showed up, but then they kind of all went through the trials and tribulations of being young men in a big city and learning how to play in the NHL, and they all came up together. Some of them came together in Hershey and kind of did a little growing there before they got to DC, but that really matters. Chemistry in the locker room, chemistry in the meeting room, it eventually translates to what's going on the ice, and to have two guys in the W who are rivals but are already friends. They're going to grow up together. They're going to probably arrive around the same time and start making an impact around the same time. It's so important.
And they're so young. They're single, things like that. Roommates here. Like, you're not just growing up on the ice, but those are your years. What I call is when the adulting happens. You start learning how to cook and how to properly grocery shop.
Have you figured that out yet, young lady?
Ask my dad.
I will. But, you're exactly right. I mean, we talked about Ryan Leonard earlier this year. He was living with Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's hard when you are a younger player on a team full of veterans. They all go home to their children, and you're still a child yourself. You don't have a whole lot to hang out, people to hang out with, or people to show you how to cook and do the dry cleaning but when you have a whole core of guys, and eventually that's going to happen here, where you have a bunch of guys that are in their young 20s, they're going to be best friends. They're going to be the next wave of young guns. And you Caps fans out there who have followed this team for a number of years, you probably have that poster of the young guns. Well, there's going to be another group of young guns. It's coming again.
Well, we're already starting to see some of that in Hershey. Of course, we have the stories from Ilya Protas, Andrew Crystal, the roommates, things down there. I want to start with Crystal because he's a guy that also tore up the WHL, although he's told me that the adjustment, he's had a good season, a good start to pro as well, but he told me, honestly, when we were there, yeah, it was kind of an
It's hard.
adjustment. And
It's
so
hard.
it is, they all get, I don't know if a wake-up call is what you should call it, because I think they are prepping for it. But now focusing to our prospects in the AHL, starting with Crystal, what have you seen out of him through this early part and what he needs to continue to focus on to become a regular Capitals player?
Katie, he had a really good weekend last weekend, racked up some points. That's always important to have some stats. It's good for your confidence. Andrew Crystal is a smaller player. Strength is going to be really important for him. I know he's working really hard on that. He's able to, in the W, he's able to just dangle through everyone and use his insane hand and stick skill to score points. And I mean, he was way over 100 points a couple years in a row. It's harder when you're starting to play with grown men and pros, and just about everyone out there is a little bigger than you are. So there's a learning curve there, but my boots on the ground have told me they are starting to see some positive development. He's starting to get some stats, but he's starting to make some inroads on those little details of the game. And that's so important because he's a big part of this organization. I don't know when he's going to get here, but it shouldn't be too long.
Well, another one we are keeping eyes on, as I know all of you fans are, Ilya Protas. He has had, I don't want to say a seamless transition, but I think it's been, from talking to everyone in Hershey, about as smooth as it can be. Contrary to Crystal, he has the size, as we've said, just like his brother did, has the size to be able to bear down. But we've seen him really strong on special teams as well for Hershey, on the power play. So once again, a guy to keep your eye on, could be here sooner rather than later.
Katie, he's 19 years old.
Which is crazy
and
to
he
think
is
about.
leading the Hershey Bears in points. I mean, that is something that is unheard of. That is a league where a lot of guys, it's a lot like the AAA for baseball. There are a lot of guys down there who are 27, 28, even 29 years old who are kind of hanging on to that pro career. They get some NHL games here and there. It's not really that much of a developmental league for some teams. Hershey has been an older team at times in the past. This year they made concerted effort to get younger, along with the Capitals. I mean, the Capitals stuck a lot of their young players down there. They wanted them, again, to grow up together and kind of get used to playing the pro game together. And Protas is a guy that I think, to me, along with maybe Ryan Chesley, those two are the closest to being able to contribute here at the NHL level. But, I mean, again, 19 years old, and you're leading an AHL team that is, by the way, 4-0 in its last 4 games, starting to make up some lost ground after kind of a soft start. He's a big time prospect who I can't wait to see him up here because, I mean, at some point the brothers pro tie,
it's going to
trademark,
be great.
they might be on the same line.
Which would be incredible to see,
cool.
and hopefully we do get to witness that. But a lot of forwards, a lot of star power we're talking about here. You mentioned Ryan Chesley, and I want to touch on him because you've said multiple times throughout this season that he is probably the closest to making this team. But he has a little bit of a different setback with the D-core here, and the guys that are, Marty is locked in long-term, Jacob Chikrin, you bring in Declan Chisholm this year. So
Cole Hudson's
when
in the mix.
Cole Hudson, going to get to
Rasmus
him
Sandin,
too.
long-term contract.
Exactly.
There are a lot of guys.
There's not a lot of space at the moment, so how does that play a role in his development?
Yeah, again, I feel like he's the type of player, look, defense takes a little bit longer to kind of get comfortable at the pro level. I don't think there's any rush. Like, you aren't looking at Ryan Chesley and going, oh, well, he should be on the Capitals next year. He's probably a year, 2 years out. You'd rather a defenseman be overcooked than undercooked. And I will also say this about any NHL team, but especially this organization. When somebody is ready, they make a hole for them. So when Ryan Chesley announces his arrival in Hershey, and says, "Okay, I figured it out down here, folks. I'm ready to come up there," they'll make a hole for him. That hasn't happened yet, but I do feel like he opened a lot of eyes with his training camp. He was a lot further along than maybe people with this organization thought at the time. But again, having a really good season. I think he had an illness last week and might have missed a game. That said, I do feel like we're going to see games in the NHL for Ryan Chesley, if not later this year, next year.
Well, we've hit on the W, we've hit on the AHL. Now we got to take it to university, specifically Boston University, Cole Hudson.
Yeah.
Once again, every time you type his name into Twitter, you see another stat, another goal that you simply look, wow, that was pretty, and I can't wait until he's doing that in a Capitals uniform.
Yeah, and it won't be long. I got to imagine he's going to follow the same pathway as his brother Lane, who was the NHL Rookie of the Year last year for Montreal. He's at BU, just like his brother. This is his second year. Look, the Caps do a really good job of letting the college guys just play their college season. They check in with them, but they don't put any pressure on them. They let them decide. Something tells me by the end of this BU season, by the end of the NCAA season, Cole Hudson's going to be ready for the pro game. He's going to sign with the Capitals. He's going to come out. Again, there's a lot of NHL players here. We don't know what direction the season's going to go right now, but I don't think he's going to come in the way Ryan Leonard did and maybe play every game, but he's going to come in, play some games, get his feet wet, figure out how hard the NHL is so he knows going into the offseason what he's got to work on so next year he can fight for a full-time job.
And I think talking to Ryan Leonard would be the perfect person to do that because he
BC
was
and BU, I don't know, are they going to get along?
That's a good point.
Big rivalry.
Maybe we can bring some friendly fire there. But Ryan was so honest with us in training camp about, I came in and I didn't have the end of the year that I wanted, and it was hard, and I learned that, but that's got to be so beneficial for these guys. And then they come back after a full first off season, a full training camp, and if he's anything like Leonard, you can already see that confidence start to come, so you hope that'll be the case for him.
Absolutely. So when an NCAA player joins an NHL team at the end of the year, with the exception of maybe like Matthew Nyes, there aren't many guys who just step in and are NHL players right away.
Big jump.
It's a huge jump. A couple of things happen. The player figures out, okay, well, I wasn't strong enough. I need to double down on that. My skating can get a little better. But, whatever it is, I'm not saying that about Cole Hudson. I'm just saying whatever it is, they learn about themselves and what they have to do to succeed at this level. But the coaching staff also gets their hands on this player and gets to see them in competitive situations. Not training camp situations, not development camp situations where they're out there dominating their fellow 18-year-olds, but where they're going out there and trying to win a quarter battle against Tom Wilson in practice. The coaching staff then can put together a program for that player going into the offseason for nutrition, for areas to work on, for parts of literally their physical strength where they need to get stronger. So everyone kind of gets on the same page, and we saw that with Ryan, and Ryan has told us. You go into the offseason with a plan, you know what you got to work on, and then you get that full training camp. It's not like trying to catch a speeding train, right? Like it is when you leave college and then try to jump onto an NHL roster at game 79. I mean, it's so hard to do, right? After you just played a full season in NCAA, you're a little exhausted, you're fried, and now you're going up against grown men who feed their family by playing this game, right? And it just gets that much harder. That's a long-winded way of saying Cole Hudson's going to be very good, and I can't wait till he gets here.
Absolutely. We have a lot of guys to say that about. We're spoiled here. A fun season as the Capitals continue on, but a lot of star power coming up. It's been fun to watch them grow up the little bit we've seen, and it's only going to continue on. So really looking forward to it, Tarek. A fun conversation. As always, thank you for the wonderful insight, and thank you all for tuning in at home to another edition of Rink Report.